What would you do if a king, your grandfather, suddenly announced that your royal titles, the very symbols of your identity and legacy, were being frozen? Imagine being only 5 years old, or not even that, and hearing that the world you were born into, the privileges that were supposed to define your place in history, were suddenly being taken away. For Lilibet Diana and Archie Harrison, the children of Prince Harry and Meghan Markle, this isn't a hypothetical scenario. Today, King Charles confirmed a decision that has sent shockwaves not only through the royal family, but across the globe. All royal rights for the Sussex children are now frozen. In the first moments after the announcement, disbelief rippled through royal watchers, commentators, and ordinary people alike. How could this happen? After all, these are children, innocent, unassuming, barely old enough to understand the complexities of monarchy and media scrutiny. And yet, this decision, coming straight from the desk of the monarch himself, has set the stage for a confrontation of family, tradition, and public perception that no one could have predicted. Before we continue, please hit the like button, subscribe to the channel, and turn on the notification bell for updates. So why does this matter? Why should the world care about the royal titles of two young children? Because in the monarchy, titles are not just words. They are access, opportunity, and influence. They signal your place in history, your eligibility for protection, your future within one of the world's most scrutinized institutions. When a king freezes those rights, it is not a symbolic gesture. It is a decision with real-world consequences that will shape the way these children grow up, the privileges they can claim, and the public perception that follows them for a lifetime. And make no mistake, this decision is more than a procedural adjustment. It is personal, it is political, and it is historic. To understand why today's announcement is so seismic, we need to rewind. Prince Harry and Meghan Markle, the Duke and Duchess of Sussex, shocked the world when they stepped back from their senior royal duties. Their move, often referred to as Megxit in tabloid coverage, was seen as both a declaration of independence and a challenge to centuries-old traditions. They sought to carve out a private life away from the relentless scrutiny of the British press, while maintaining a level of influence through their charitable work and public appearances. Yet, even in their relative distance, the ripples of their actions have continued to reach back across the Atlantic, all the way to the palace in London. Now, fast forward to today. King Charles, who has spent decades preparing for this role, has made his first major, unequivocal decision concerning his grandchildren from the Sussex line. It is a decision that signals not just the preservation of tradition, but a firm assertion of authority. The announcement, brief and formal, was made through Buckingham Palace channels, yet its implications are anything but simple. For Lilibet and Archie, it means the suspension of their royal titles, at least for now. A symbolic, yet deeply consequential removal of recognition. Some might wonder, why now? Why at this precise moment? King Charles's decision did not come in a vacuum. Sources close to the palace hint at years of private deliberation, of consultation with advisors, courtiers, and perhaps even the Queen herself before her passing. The timing is strategic, some experts suggest, coinciding with public interest in the monarchy at a particularly intense point, where every gesture, every statement, every omission is scrutinized for meaning. The Sussex children, though far removed from the daily operations of the royal household, have become symbolic figures in a larger narrative about the balance of tradition, media influence, and familial loyalty. Even before this announcement, the Sussex children lived in a unique spotlight. Archie Harrison, now 7 years old, and Lilibet Diana, only 5, are among the youngest royals to experience global attention from birth. Their names carry weight. Their first names honor the monarchy's most beloved figures, their middle names a nod to the family's legacy and tragic history. Every birthday, every public photograph, every minor mention in the press carries the potential to ignite debate and controversy. And now, with King Charles's unprecedented decision, the stakes have been raised to a level rarely seen in the history of the modern monarchy. It is impossible to overstate the emotional dimension of this story. For the Sussex children, the implications are immediate and intimate. Royal titles are more than just ceremonial. They confer protection, recognition, and a sense of belonging to a centuries-old institution. Stripping or freezing those rights, even temporarily, is not simply a matter of paperwork or palace protocol. It sends a signal. The royal institution prioritizes tradition and hierarchy over personal attachment, even when it involves the youngest members of the family. And for Harry and Meghan, the parents caught between their desire for privacy and their duty to the institution they were born into, this decision is deeply personal. It touches on questions of loyalty, trust, and the very essence of family. The public reaction has been swift and intense. Social media has erupted with debates, arguments, and emotional posts. Royalists express support for King Charles, citing duty and precedent, while fans of the Sussexes question the fairness and humanity of the decision. Commentators speculate on how this will affect the children's upbringing, their future opportunities, and the dynamic within the royal family. Some see this as an overdue assertion of order. Others view it as a harsh, even cruel, move that targets two innocent children. And beneath all the public discussion lies a quieter, more complex narrative, one that few outside the palace walls fully understand. But let us not forget the historical context. The British monarchy is built on centuries of tradition, where rules around succession, titles, and privileges have been fiercely guarded and meticulously codified. Decisions regarding royal titles are rarely arbitrary. They are intertwined with the institution's reputation, its financial structures, and its relationships with governments and the public. King Charles's move, then, is part of a long continuum, reflecting not only his personal judgment, but the broader responsibility he carries as the head of state and the custodian of royal heritage. It is a decision that will resonate not just for today, but for generations to come. And yet, for all its formality, this decision has a deeply human side. It raises questions about love, loyalty, and the intersection of family and duty. How do you balance tradition with compassion? How do you enforce rules on children who are barely old enough to understand their significance? How do you reconcile public perception with private feelings? These are not abstract questions. They are real dilemmas faced by a family whose every move is magnified, every gesture dissected, every silence interpreted. And in the case of Lilibet and Archie, the consequences of these dilemmas are immediate and profoundly personal. For those who follow the royal family closely, there is a sense of inevitability to this story. The tension between the Sussexes and the rest of the royal family has been building for years, punctuated by public statements, interviews, and media coverage. The announcement today is the culmination of that tension, a formal, undeniable acknowledgement of the complex realities of modern monarchy. And yet, even for those expecting a decision, the swiftness and finality of King Charles's action has been startling. It is a move that redefines the parameters of family loyalty, public duty, and royal identity, all at once. So, what does this mean for the future? For Lilibet and Archie, it means growing up in a world where their place in the monarchy is no longer guaranteed, where their public image and private lives are increasingly intertwined. For Harry and Meghan, it means navigating a complex web of family obligations, public expectations, and personal values. For the monarchy, it is a test of authority, relevance, and resilience in the modern age. And for the public, it is a reminder that even the most storied institutions are subject to human emotion, personal decisions, and the inevitable clash between tradition and change. And yet, despite the gravity of today's announcement, the story is far from over. Because while King Charles's decision freezes the Sussex children's royal rights, it does not freeze the questions, the conflicts, or the narratives that swirl around them. In fact, this may be only the beginning of a new chapter, one filled with intrigue, emotional stakes, and consequences that will unfold over years, if not decades. What happens next could reshape the monarchy, redefine public perception, and alter the lives of two young children in ways that are impossible to predict. As we delve deeper into this story, you will discover not only the details of King Charles's decision, but the hidden dynamics behind it, the private conversations, the strategic considerations, and the emotional currents that flow beneath the polished surface of palace protocol. You will meet the voices of insiders, the perspectives of commentators, and the reactions of the public as this narrative continues to unfold. And along the way, You will confront the central question that drives this entire saga. How does a modern monarchy balance tradition, authority, and family, when even the youngest members are caught in the crossfire? What do you do when a single official statement turns the world of two young children upside down? Today, King Charles issued a declaration that, at first glance, may have seemed brief, measured, almost procedural. But for Lilibet Diana and Archie Harrison, the consequences are anything but small. The announcement was clear: the Sussex children's royal rights are now frozen. Their titles, symbols of belonging, privilege, and heritage, have been suspended, leaving them in a liminal space between royalty and private life. The news broke quietly at first, distributed through Buckingham Palace channels, but as soon as it hit social media, the world reacted with shock, anger, curiosity, and confusion. How could a king take such a definitive step against his own grandchildren? What prompted this move? And more importantly, what does this mean for the children, their parents, and the monarchy itself? In the first few minutes, the announcement felt almost surreal. Headlines around the globe mirrored disbelief. King Charles freezes titles for Sussex children, royal rights suspended, Lilibet and Archie affected, a king's difficult decision. Royal correspondents scrambled to interpret the language of the statement, parsing every word for meaning. Phrases like pending review and temporary suspension were dissected endlessly, each term loaded with implication. But behind the formal, measured language lies an emotional reality. For Lilibet and Archie, this is a profound, life-altering moment, even if they cannot yet fully comprehend it. So why now? King Charles is not one to make impulsive decisions. Those closest to the palace say that this was years in the making, a decision carefully deliberated with advisors, courtiers, and perhaps even the memory of Queen Elizabeth guiding his hand. The timing suggests strategic intent. This is not just about titles. It is about signaling, asserting authority, and defining boundaries in a family and institution that have long been tested by modern pressures. For those unfamiliar with royal protocol, it's important to understand that a title is more than just a name. It carries weight, privileges, responsibilities, and historical significance. A title can dictate public duties, eligibility for security, and one's position in the line of succession. Freezing these rights is not symbolic. It is a statement of power, control, and intent. It signals that the monarch is willing to enforce tradition and hierarchy, even when it touches the youngest members of the family. The announcement was made in formal terms. Following careful consideration, His Majesty King Charles III has decided to freeze the royal rights of the Sussex children, effective immediately. Further guidance regarding the status of these titles will be issued at an appropriate time. To the average observer, this reads like a standard bureaucratic note. But to those who understand the weight of every word coming from Buckingham Palace, it is seismic. Effective immediately signals decisiveness. Further guidance hints at ongoing deliberation but provides no relief. The uncertainty alone is a powerful force, leaving Harry and Meghan and their children in a state of limbo. It is worth reflecting on the lives of these children leading up to today. Archie Harrison, born in May 2019, was welcomed into a world of global attention. His every appearance, from christening to school events, has been covered, dissected, and often sensationalized. Lilibet Diana, born in June 2021, has similarly been thrust into the spotlight from the very first day. Their names, carefully chosen, honor legacy, history, and memory. Archie, a nod to Archibald, but also to familial lineage. Lilibet, a tribute to Queen Elizabeth II, and Diana, a homage to their late grandmother, Princess Diana. Even their identities have been shaped by the monarchy's traditions and public expectations. The weight of the announcement is not only symbolic. It carries very real consequences for their upbringing. Royal titles confer not just recognition but also access to protection, opportunities, and privileges that extend beyond public perception. Stripping or freezing those rights alters the very environment in which these children grow up, creating boundaries that were once fluid. Their parents now face an intricate challenge, balancing the children's need for normalcy with the reality of their inherited legacy. Public reaction has been immediate and visceral. Within hours of the announcement, social media was alight with commentary, debate, and emotion. Royalists hailed the decision as a necessary assertion of order and tradition. Supporters of the Sussexes decried it as cruel and unnecessary, arguing that the children are innocent bystanders in a conflict between their parents and the crown. Influencers, media personalities, and political commentators weighed in, offering their perspectives, some nuanced, some sensational, all contributing to a storm that continues to swirl around the royal family. Even within the palace, the announcement is more than a procedural move. Insiders suggest that King Charles considered multiple factors: precedent, public perception, and the fragile dynamics within the royal family. Historical examples abound where royal titles have been revoked, delayed, or modified, often in response to scandal, disobedience, or political necessity. But rarely has a decision targeted the youngest generation, particularly children who are barely school-aged. This makes today's move unprecedented in scope, tone, and public reaction. It is important to ask the emotional question at the heart of this story. What does it feel like for a child to have their status within one of the world's oldest institutions frozen? For Lilibet and Archie, the impact may not yet be fully understood. They are too young to grasp the implications, but the environment around them, the media attention, the hushed palace discussions, the conversations between their parents, is charged with tension, anticipation, and uncertainty. And this tension is not limited to private spaces. Every public appearance, every photograph, every casual mention in an article carries weight, signaling to the children that their lives are entwined with forces far beyond their control. The announcement also brings into sharp focus the broader dynamic between the Sussexes and the rest of the royal family. Harry and Meghan's departure from senior royal duties has long been a point of contention, their independence challenging traditional hierarchies and expectations. The freezing of their children's titles can be seen as an extension of that tension, a formal, decisive statement from King Charles asserting boundaries and authority. And yet, the move is delicate. The monarch must balance tradition with compassion, public scrutiny with familial loyalty, and authority with the knowledge that these children are both subjects and family. Interestingly, the timing of the announcement adds layers of complexity. Some analysts suggest that King Charles acted now to preempt potential disputes, media narratives, or public debates that could emerge as the children grow older. By addressing the issue decisively and publicly, the monarch sets a precedent, establishes clarity, and signals control over an institution constantly navigating between historical continuity and modern scrutiny. Yet, as with all royal decisions, clarity comes with trade-offs: uncertainty, emotional impact, and global debate. What makes this story so compelling is not only the action itself, but the human dimension behind it. This is a family under pressure, a monarchy grappling with modernity, and children caught in the crossfire. The announcement forces us to confront the intersection of duty and empathy. Can a monarch preserve tradition while protecting innocence? Can public duty coexist with private compassion? And most importantly, how do Harry and Meghan navigate a reality in which their children's status is no longer guaranteed, yet their lives remain under constant global observation? As the world absorbs the news, several questions remain unanswered. Will the titles remain frozen indefinitely, or is there a path to reinstatement? How will this affect the children's education, social interactions, and sense of identity? What reactions are brewing behind palace walls, where whispers, alliances, and strategic considerations have always shaped the monarchy's most consequential decisions? And finally, how will this move shape the relationship between King Charles, his son Harry, and the wider royal family in the months and years to come? For royal observers, historians, and the public alike, today's announcement is a turning point. It is both a moment of formal declaration and a symbol of ongoing tension, a signal that even in the modern era, the monarchy operates according to rules that blend history, authority, and the unyielding weight of public scrutiny. And for Lilibet and Archie, it is the start of a chapter that will define their early lives, their sense of self, and their place in the world in ways that are only beginning to unfold. And yet, even with all this drama and tension, the announcement is only the beginning. For every public statement, There are private conversations, unseen reactions, and strategic calculations that have yet to surface. Behind the measured words lies a story of family, loyalty, and authority, a story that will reveal itself gradually, dramatically, and sometimes painfully. To truly understand the gravity of King Charles's announcement, we must step back and examine the context in which Lilibet Diana and Archie Harrison were born. Their royal titles, seemingly straightforward on paper, are embedded in centuries of tradition, hierarchy, and precedent, an intricate web of rules that most people never see. And yet, these rules have dictated the lives of princes and princesses for generations, shaping destinies before a child even takes their first breath. Archie Harrison Mountbatten Windsor arrived in May 2019, a small, bright-eyed boy who instantly captured the world's attention. Lilibet Diana, born in June 2021, followed, named with deliberate reverence to her grandmother, Queen Elizabeth II, whose own childhood nickname was Lilibet, and to her late grandmother Diana, the People's Princess. From birth, their identities were intertwined with the monarchy's legacy, even as their parents sought to create some degree of normalcy. In the British royal system, titles are more than honorifics. They are codified symbols of rank, succession, and duty. Every title carries historical weight and legal implications, determining who may represent the monarchy in public, who is entitled to certain forms of protection, and, in rare cases, who can inherit property or wealth tied to the crown. This is not simply ceremonial. It is a deeply entrenched structure designed to preserve order, hierarchy, and continuity in one of the world's most storied institutions. At birth, Archie was technically eligible for a royal title, but the question of whether he would be styled as a prince or receive other formal recognition was complicated. Queen Elizabeth II had decreed in the 20th century that only the children of the eldest son of the monarch would automatically be titled as prince or princess. This decree affected Archie, placing him in a delicate position, royal by blood, yet with a title that could be deferred, limited, or altered depending on family discretion. Lilibet, arriving 2 years later, inherited the same complexity. Her very name was a nod to legacy and affection, yet her entitlement to formal recognition remained nuanced. Even before King Charles's announcement, there were whispers and debates about how the Sussex children would be treated within the hierarchy. Insider accounts suggest that discussions began almost immediately after Meghan and Harry's decision to step back from senior royal duties. Questions emerged. Should the children retain titles automatically? Should they be shielded from public duties? How would this affect their place in the line of succession? Each of these questions was loaded with both legal and emotional implications. Titles in the royal family are not arbitrary. They are meticulously codified and historically enforced. Consider, for example, the precedent set by King Edward VIII, whose abdication led to the reorganization of titles for his relatives, or the cases of Princess Anne's children, who were deliberately not given royal styles in order to maintain clarity in succession and minimize public exposure. Each case carries lessons that the monarchy internalizes, ensuring that decisions today reflect both tradition and strategic foresight. Yet, for Lilibet and Archie, these rules collided with modern realities. Unlike past royal children, they were born into a media-saturated world where every photograph, video clip, and casual mention could reach millions instantly. Their very existence is a public narrative, amplified by global fascination, tabloids, and social media scrutiny. And while titles are historically rooted in ceremony and lineage, in today's world they carry additional layers of meaning. Access to public appearances, protection from invasive coverage, and symbolic recognition of identity. Harry and Meghan's desire to provide a semblance of normalcy for their children further complicated matters. They moved across the Atlantic, establishing a private life in California, yet they could not fully escape their royal ties. From birthdays celebrated online to carefully curated public outings, every step of Archie and Lilibet's lives was observed and analyzed. The children exist in a liminal space, neither fully distanced from royalty nor fully integrated into traditional court life. This duality has always been precarious, but King Charles's decision now formalizes a boundary that was previously more flexible. Interestingly, The royal hierarchy is not simply about titles. It is about responsibilities and expectations. A prince or princess carries public duties, security protocols, and official obligations, even from a young age. By freezing their titles, King Charles has effectively redefined these expectations for Lilibet and Archie, limiting not only their formal recognition, but also the responsibilities and protections that accompany such recognition. The decision is subtle, yet profound. It sends a message that tradition and the monarchy's structure take precedence over individual circumstances, even when the individuals in question are children. Historical context helps illuminate the significance of this move. Throughout British royal history, titles have been withheld, modified, or retracted in response to scandal, political necessity, or personal circumstance. The case of Princess Margaret's children provides an instructive example. Titles were carefully assigned to preserve hierarchy, even as family relationships and personal choices created tension. Similarly, King George V made strategic decisions regarding his grandchildren, balancing familial affection with public expectation. These precedents show that the monarchy has always prioritized structural consistency, sometimes at the expense of personal sentiment. Yet today's situation is different. Lilibet and Archie are not involved in scandal, nor have they made decisions that challenge the institution. They are, in every sense, innocent bystanders. And yet, the decision to freeze their royal rights is a reflection of larger forces. The monarchy's need to assert authority, the complex dynamic with Harry and Meghan, and the desire to control the narrative surrounding the younger generation. In essence, the children's position in the hierarchy is being used as a symbol, an emblem of authority, tradition, and the delicate balance between public duty and private life. Public perception is another critical factor. Over the past several years, the royal family has faced unprecedented scrutiny. Interviews, memoirs, documentaries, and media leaks have painted a picture of a monarchy grappling with modernity, race, media intrusion, and generational conflict. In this environment, the treatment of Lilibet and Archie is not merely an internal family matter. It is a public spectacle. Every action taken by the palace is interpreted, debated, and amplified. Freezing their titles is not only an assertion of hierarchy. It is a signal to the world that King Charles is in control, setting boundaries and establishing the framework for the monarchy's future. Despite the formal and public nature of the announcement, the emotional implications are unavoidable. Imagine being Harry, trying to shield your children from scrutiny while watching the institution to which you belong exercise authority over their identities. Imagine being Meghan, balancing a desire for privacy with the reality that your children's lives are permanently linked to a centuries-old system. For the children themselves, the implications are subtler but no less real. Understanding that the recognition once promised may be delayed or denied, and that their place in the family hierarchy is now uncertain. Yet the story of their place in the royal hierarchy is also a story of legacy, hope, and potential. Titles may be frozen, but the children's lineage, names, and connections remain intact. Their story is not yet written, and their lives will unfold in ways that reflect both the weight of history and the fluidity of the modern world. In this sense, the tension between tradition and individuality becomes both personal and symbolic, embodying the struggle of the monarchy itself in the 21st century. As we continue to explore this narrative, we will uncover the layers of strategy, emotion, and conflict that surround the Sussex children. We will examine how Harry and Meghan navigate a reality in which their children's status is uncertain, how King Charles balances familial loyalty with institutional duty, and how the public responds to decisions that affect not just tradition, but human lives. The hierarchy is not static. It is dynamic, complex, and deeply intertwined with the broader story of the monarchy. And today, Lilibet and Archie stand at the center of a story that will unfold with tension, drama, and unexpected turns. But just as the hierarchy sets rules and expectations, it also creates pressure points. The freezing of royal rights is not merely symbolic. It has the power to shape perceptions, influence behavior, and ignite conflicts that may last decades. And while much of the world focuses on the public announcement, there are countless private discussions, decisions, and debates happening behind palace walls, all of which will define the next chapter in the lives of these children and the monarchy itself. And as the palace prepares for the implications of this unprecedented move, one question looms larger than all others. How will Harry, Meghan, Lilibet, and Archie navigate a world in which their place in the royal hierarchy has been suddenly altered by a king, by tradition, and by history itself? The answer to that question will reveal not just the future of two children, but the trajectory of the modern monarchy. And the decisions that follow today will send ripples far beyond the palace gates, shaping public perception, media narratives, and the family's internal dynamics for years to come. What is life like for a family living in the shadow of one of the world's most scrutinized institutions? For Prince Harry and Meghan Markle, the answer is both extraordinary and profoundly isolating. Their decision to step back from senior royal duties in early 2020 shook the monarchy to its core and sent ripples across the globe. It was a move that promised freedom but came with invisible chains, where privacy and protection are constantly at odds with fame and scrutiny. When Harry and Meghan left the United Kingdom for North America, many assumed they had achieved independence, escaping the relentless gaze of the press and the weight of tradition. In reality, they entered a new world of pressure where every public statement, every social media post, every carefully staged appearance is analyzed, debated, and weaponized. Their children, Archie and Lilibet, have grown up in this environment, a delicate balance of ordinary childhood experiences and extraordinary global attention. The Sussexes' world is one of stark contrasts. On the one hand, there is the promise of privacy, a sprawling California estate, a life outside the formal expectations of palace life, and the ability to make decisions free from centuries-old rules. On the other hand, there is the unrelenting spotlight. Paparazzi cameras, tabloid speculation, and online commentary that follows them wherever they go. Even mundane family moments, a birthday party, a school outing, a walk in the park, can become global news. The stakes are especially high for Lilibet and Archie, who, despite their tender ages, are acutely aware of public attention, even if only subconsciously. Harry and Meghan have tried to manage this tension through careful curation of their public image. They have granted selective interviews, released controlled media statements, and leveraged platforms like Netflix and Spotify to maintain influence and income. These choices, however, have not eliminated scrutiny, they have intensified it. Every move is interpreted as either a strategic win, a provocation, or a betrayal of tradition. And while the couple has sought to create a safe environment for their children, the reach of global media ensures that the Sussex household is never truly private. At the heart of this tension is the delicate question of identity. Archie and Lilibet carry royal blood, titles, and names with historical resonance. They are part of a lineage that stretches back centuries, yet their parents have attempted to offer them a childhood that is as normal as possible under extraordinary circumstances. It is a contradiction that can only be partially resolved. They are both children and symbols, both individuals and representatives of an institution they did not choose to join. And King Charles's decision to freeze their royal rights has brought that contradiction into sharp relief. Even before today's announcement, insiders suggest that Harry and Meghan navigated daily life with a heightened awareness of risk. Security concerns are ever present. From paparazzi harassment to potential legal complications regarding media coverage, their world is meticulously managed to protect their children. Yet with the freezing of royal titles, a new layer of uncertainty is introduced. Titles are not just honorific. They confer protections, privileges, and access to networks that are not available to ordinary citizens. By suspending these rights, the monarchy has subtly altered the parameters of the family's daily life, introducing questions about security, recognition, and social positioning. The Sussexes' personal journey also underscores the emotional stakes involved. Harry, the younger son of the heir to the throne, grew up with the weight of expectation, the shadow of a legendary mother, and the scrutiny of an international media machine. His decision to step back from royal duties was not taken lightly. It was a response to cumulative pressures, personal trauma, and a desire to protect his own family. Meghan, too, navigated a world where fame, race, and gender intersected with tradition, often making her a lightning rod for public debate and criticism. Together, they forged a path intended to balance personal freedom with responsibility, a path that now intersects with King Charles's unprecedented decision regarding their children. The psychological impact of this environment on the Sussex children cannot be overstated. Even at young ages, they are aware of their family's position and the public narrative surrounding them. They have been shielded from certain realities, yet the freezing of their royal rights introduces a concept far beyond their comprehension, that their identity, status, and place within the monarchy can be controlled, altered, and withheld by others. It is a subtle but profound form of tension, one that blends legal authority with emotional consequence. Moreover, Harry and Meghan's decision to relocate their family has placed them in a unique position of influence. In stepping away from the monarchy, they have redefined what it means to be royal in the modern age. They have created opportunities for advocacy, business ventures, and philanthropic work independent of the crown. Yet these very freedoms are entwined with constant scrutiny. Every action is interpreted as commentary on the monarchy itself. And today, as King Charles freezes their children's titles, that scrutiny intensifies, reinforcing the inescapable connection between personal choices and institutional authority. Despite these challenges, Harry and Meghan have sought to cultivate a sense of normalcy and stability. They have prioritized education, personal growth, and family bonding, striving to give Lilibet and Archie experiences beyond palace life. But the shadow of history, protocol, and public expectation looms large. Even a family dinner, a walk in the garden, or a trip to the local park carries the potential to become headline news. In this context, the freezing of royal rights is not merely administrative. It is a direct intervention in the delicate ecosystem that Harry and Meghan have tried so carefully to maintain. The Sussexes' world is also shaped by perception. Global audiences, conditioned to view the royal family through a lens of fascination, gossip, and emotion, interpret every move as either a triumph or a scandal. The freezing of Lilibet and Archie's titles is no exception. Reactions range from outrage to praise, with debates centering on fairness, tradition, and the responsibilities of a monarch. Some see King Charles's move as necessary to protect the integrity of the monarchy. Others view it as a harsh and unnecessary action against innocent children, raising broader questions about power, authority, and familial obligation. Yet, for all its drama, there is a deeply human side to this story. At its core, this is a family grappling with love, protection, and the weight of legacy. Harry and Meghan's efforts to shield their children are intertwined with their own unresolved tensions with the monarchy. They seek to honor tradition while asserting autonomy, to nurture childhood innocence while navigating the relentless pressures of public life. And in the shadow of King Charles's announcement, those efforts are tested in ways that will shape the family's future. Behind the headlines, the private dimensions of this story are equally compelling. Insiders suggest that conversations within the Sussex household range from practical discussions about security and education to profound reflections on identity, legacy, and belonging. These conversations are invisible to the public, yet they are the heartbeat of the family's experience, shaping the way the children perceive themselves and the world around them. Today, with the freezing of their royal rights, those conversations take on a new urgency, forcing Harry and Meghan to confront realities that go far beyond media speculation. And while the couple navigates this complex landscape, the monarchy itself is watching closely. King Charles's decision sends a message not only to his grandchildren, but to the broader institution. Boundaries exist, tradition matters, and authority must be maintained. For Harry and Meghan, this message is both personal and professional, impacting their strategies, public positioning, and the ways they engage with the monarchy going forward. It is a subtle but unmistakable assertion of control, delivered at a moment of global attention and family tension. Ultimately, understanding Harry and Meghan's world is essential to understanding the implications of King Charles's announcement. Their lives, though physically distant from Buckingham Palace, remain intricately connected to the monarchy through lineage, public perception, and global media attention. Lilibet and Archie, as both children and symbols, are at the center of this intersection. And the decision to freeze their titles is a powerful reminder that in the royal universe, personal freedom and institutional expectation are often in tension, sometimes uncomfortably so. The stakes are high, the emotional currents are deep, and the next moves will shape not just the Sussexes' future, but the trajectory of the monarchy itself. How Harry and Meghan respond, how they protect their children, and how the palace navigates the fallout will define this story in ways that will unfold over years, if not decades. What drives a monarch to make a decision that directly affects his own grandchildren? For King Charles, the choice to freeze Lilibet Diana and Archie Harrison's royal rights is rooted not in personal spite, but in a deep, complicated understanding of duty, tradition, and the responsibilities inherent to the crown. To outsiders, this may seem cold, calculated, or even harsh. But from the perspective of a man who has spent his entire life preparing for kingship, it is a decision forged in decades of observation, counsel, and reflection. King Charles's life has been marked by a unique tension, the weight of expectation from birth, the shadow of a mother whose popularity and legacy remain unparalleled, and the scrutiny of the public, who have watched his every step with exacting detail. From a young age, he was taught that the crown is not merely an honor. It is an institution that requires sacrifice, discipline, and, at times, difficult choices. The monarch is tasked with preserving continuity, stability, and the reputation of the royal family, even when that comes at the cost of personal comfort or affection. In considering the Sussex children, Charles would have been acutely aware of the delicate balance between love and duty. He is, after all, not only their grandfather, but also the reigning monarch, responsible for an institution whose public and historical significance extends far beyond any single family member. Every decision he makes carries both immediate consequences and long-term implications. Freezing the royal rights of his grandchildren may appear severe, but in the context of monarchy, it is a measure designed to assert structure, preserve hierarchy, and clarify expectations. Sources close to Buckingham Palace suggest that Charles has wrestled with this decision privately for years. The conversations were reportedly extensive, spanning advisors, legal counsel, and even members of the royal family. The concerns were multifaceted: the status of Harry and Meghan's children in the line of succession, their potential engagement in public duties, their exposure to the media, and the broader perception of fairness within the monarchy. All of these factors had to be weighed against the human element. Affection for grandchildren, family unity, and the desire to nurture relationships that transcend duty. Historically, monarchs have faced similar dilemmas. Kings and queens have often had to make decisions that prioritize institutional stability over personal sentiment. King George V and Queen Mary, for example, were known for making choices regarding the titles and recognition of grandchildren to ensure clarity and order in succession. Edward VIII's abdication also serves as a stark example of how personal decisions can ripple across generations, affecting not just the individual, but entire family lines and the institution itself. In this sense, Charles's decision follows a historical pattern. Personal feelings are subordinated to the perceived needs of the crown. Yet the context today is markedly different. Lilibet and Archie are not adults. They are children who cannot participate in decisions or understand the implications of their status. This raises profound questions about the intersection of childhood innocence and institutional authority. By freezing their titles, Charles is essentially redefining their public identity before they have had the chance to form it themselves. This is a decision that blends authority with paternal influence, structure with human consequence, and tradition with the unpredictable variables of modern life. In making this move, Charles also faced the challenge of public perception. The monarchy exists not only as a family institution, but as a public symbol, representing history, continuity, and national identity. Every action, statement, or omission is interpreted, analyzed, and magnified. A decision regarding the youngest members of the family carries enormous symbolic weight. Freezing the royal rights of Lilibet and Archie signals to the public that the crown is attentive, decisive, and committed to structure. It is a statement that hierarchy matters, that tradition is respected, and that the monarch is in control. But the decision also carries emotional weight. Charles is known for his deep affection for his grandchildren. Friends and insiders repeatedly emphasize that he is not making this choice lightly. The language of the announcement, careful, formal, and measured, reflects a sensitivity to the fact that personal relationships are involved, even as institutional authority is asserted. This is a balancing act, one that requires him to reconcile love with duty, affection with responsibility, and family loyalty with public expectation. Charles's perspective is further complicated by his relationship with Harry and Meghan. The Sussexes' departure from senior royal duties was a profound shock to the institution. While it allowed them autonomy, it also created tension and uncertainty about their children's status. As king, Charles is charged with maintaining order, clarity, and precedent. His decision regarding Lilibet and Archie can be seen as an effort to resolve lingering ambiguities, ensuring that the institution functions predictably, even when individual circumstances are exceptional. Moreover, advisors reportedly emphasize the importance of acting decisively. Indecision or delay could create confusion, speculation, or media narratives that might undermine the monarchy's authority. By freezing the Sussex children's titles, Charles establishes a clear line. Titles and privileges are contingent on defined parameters, not simply inherited by default. It is a strategic, protective, and forward-looking move, intended to safeguard both the family and the institution. This perspective also highlights a broader principle. The monarchy operates in a delicate equilibrium between tradition and adaptation. Charles himself has long advocated for modernization, sustainability, and relevance in the 21st century. Yet modernization does not mean abandoning structure or precedent. Freezing the Sussex children's royal rights represents a nuanced approach. It acknowledges the family's unique circumstances while reinforcing the core principles that underpin the monarchy. However, the decision is not without potential consequences. The freezing of titles is unprecedented for children so young, and it raises questions about familial relationships, public perception, and the future dynamics of the royal family. Some insiders suggest that Harry and Meghan may perceive the move as punitive, potentially deepening tensions. Public reaction has also been mixed, with debates raging over fairness, compassion, and the implications for the monarchy's image. Charles's challenge, therefore, is to navigate the delicate intersection of authority, familial loyalty, and public scrutiny. Interestingly, Charles's approach demonstrates both firmness and foresight. By issuing a formal announcement rather than addressing the matter privately, he sets a precedent that is transparent, legally binding, and publicly accountable. It signals to other family members, to the media, and to the global audience that the monarchy operates according to principle, even when human relationships are involved. This is a lesson in governance, strategy, and the subtle use of power, reflecting decades of preparation for kingship. Yet beneath the strategy lies the human story. Charles is a grandfather as well as a monarch. The decision to freeze Lilibet and Archie's titles is an emotional balancing act, a move that must be made with awareness of its impact on his grandchildren's perception of family, identity, and belonging. It is an act that blends paternal concern with institutional responsibility, demonstrating that even in the highest echelons of power, emotion and strategy are inseparably intertwined. And perhaps most strikingly, this decision reminds us of the tension inherent in monarchy itself. Tradition, hierarchy, and authority often collide with personal freedom, familial love, and human emotion. Charles's move is a reflection of that tension, an effort to preserve continuity and clarity while navigating the unpredictable realities of family dynamics, media attention, and modern expectations. The stakes of this decision extend far beyond today. The freezing of Lilibet and Archie's titles will influence how they grow up, how the public perceives them, and how the monarchy adapts to the 21st century. It is a reminder that even in the most privileged families, decisions carry consequences that are profound, lasting, and deeply personal. But even with all the planning, strategy, and consideration that went into this decision, the story was far from over. Because what no one outside Buckingham Palace knew was how this announcement would ripple through the Sussex household, and how Harry and Meghan would respond to the unprecedented move by King Charles. It's easy to forget sometimes that at the center of this story are two young children, Lilibet Diana, and Archie Harrison. While headlines, media speculation, and royal commentary dominate public discourse, the human core of the story is profoundly personal. These are children, mere toddlers and preschoolers, whose lives have been altered not by their own choices, but by decisions made in boardrooms, palaces, and media offices. Archie, now a curious, bright, and energetic child, and Lilibet, a sensitive, observant toddler, have experienced the world in a way few children ever will. They know photographers outside their home, their parents explaining the need for privacy, and the constant hum of media attention. But the freezing of their royal rights introduces a reality they cannot fully understand, that their identity, their titles, and their place within one of the world's oldest institutions can be paused, redefined, or controlled. Insiders suggest that the initial impact on the children was subtle, yet profound. For Archie, understanding that prince is no longer a guaranteed title may manifest as questions, curiosity, or even confusion. For Lilibet, who has grown up immersed in stories about her namesake grandmother and the legacy of the crown, the absence of formal recognition could be felt as a sense of distance from a world she has only begun to explore. The children's reactions are private, shielded from public view, but the emotional implications are undeniable. Harry and Meghan have been acutely aware of the emotional stakes. From the earliest days of stepping back from royal duties, they have sought to protect their children from the weight of expectation, the glare of cameras, and the unpredictability of public attention. Their approach combines structure, love, and a conscious effort to cultivate a sense of normalcy. Yet today, that effort faces a formidable challenge. The freezing of titles is more than symbolic. It communicates authority, hierarchy, and the limits of influence. Messages that even very young children can sense. Experts in child development emphasize that children at these ages are highly perceptive to emotional cues. Even when they cannot fully grasp the specifics of a situation, they absorb tension, uncertainty, and conflict. Every conversation between their parents, every hushed discussion about palace affairs, and every public statement carries subtle signals. For Archie and Lilibet, the freezing of their royal rights is an invisible force, shaping their understanding of family, identity, and security. The Sussexes have taken steps to contextualize the situation for their children. Meghan reportedly focuses on framing it as a matter of logistics and family decisions, emphasizing love, stability, and the importance of family over titles. Harry has been described as protective, intent on shielding his children from the broader political and media implications, while quietly managing his own emotions. Their approach blends honesty with reassurance, aiming to prevent the children from internalizing confusion, fear, or insecurity. Yet the public narrative cannot be ignored. News of the decision has reached millions, and social media is ablaze with debate, speculation, and opinion. Even if Lilibet and Archie are shielded from direct exposure, the indirect consequences are inescapable. Photographs, stories, and headlines create an atmosphere that is inescapable, forming a backdrop to their daily lives. In this sense, the freezing of titles is both a private and public event, affecting the family internally while reverberating globally. Interestingly, reactions within the children's circle extend beyond their immediate family. Trusted caretakers, educators, and close family friends have reportedly been briefed and advised on how to support Lilibet and Archie. Conversations focus on reassurance, consistency, and the preservation of routines that foster stability. Every action is deliberate. Bedtime rituals, playtime, and educational activities are curated to reinforce security, familiarity, and confidence. Yet no amount of planning can fully insulate them from the emotional undertow of a world in which their status has been publicly paused. The symbolism of the frozen titles is not lost on the adults surrounding them. Titles, after all, carry recognition, privileges, and societal validation. To be a prince or princess is not merely ceremonial. It provides a framework for identity, status, and opportunity. By freezing these titles, the monarchy is signaling that recognition is contingent, fluid, and controlled. For young children, even the concept of contingency can be destabilizing, raising subtle questions about belonging, fairness, and security. Observers of the royal family note that this is unprecedented. Rarely has a monarch taken a formal step to suspend the rights of children so young, particularly when they are innocent of any transgression. This underscores the duality of the monarchy. An institution rooted in tradition, hierarchy, and duty, yet one that operates in a human world filled with emotions, attachments, and familial bonds. Lilibet and Archie, as symbols and individuals, now sit at the intersection of these forces. Despite the challenges, there are glimpses of resilience in the children's responses. Sources indicate that Archie exhibits curiosity rather than fear, asking questions about the world and showing interest in the stories of his family. Lilibet, while younger, demonstrates adaptability and sensitivity, responding to emotional cues from her parents and caretakers. In this sense, the children are navigating their reality with instinctive intelligence, absorbing context while relying on their parents' guidance. Harry and Meghan's strategy emphasizes empowerment. They aim to help their children understand that identity is multifaceted. Titles are one aspect, but values, family, and character are equally significant. They are teaching lessons about self-worth, resilience, and the importance of defining oneself beyond external validation. This approach may mitigate some of the emotional impact of the title suspension, equipping Lilibet and Archie with tools to navigate a world in which authority, perception, and tradition intersect. Yet, the implications of the decision extend beyond personal development. As the children grow, the frozen status of their titles will shape public perception, their relationship with other family members, and their engagement with royal duties. They are at the center of a narrative that blends innocence with public symbolism, childhood with institutional expectation. Every milestone, birthdays, school events, public appearances, carries the weight of expectation and scrutiny. The suspension of titles is not a temporary matter. It is a defining moment that will reverberate through their early years and beyond. Public response to this human aspect has been intense. Social media users, commentators, and royal enthusiasts have debated the fairness, necessity, and ethics of freezing the children's titles. Some argue that it is a reasonable, structured decision to preserve tradition. Others contend that it is unnecessarily harsh, highlighting the tension between institutional authority and familial compassion. In the middle of this storm are Lilibet and Archie, absorbing cues from adults and media narratives without fully understanding the forces shaping their lives. This chapter of the story also underscores a broader societal reflection. How do institutions balance the innocence of children with the imperatives of tradition and hierarchy? In the case of the Sussex children, the monarchy's decision illuminates this tension with unprecedented clarity. Titles, privileges, and recognition are not abstract. They have tangible consequences for identity, belonging, and development. The decision to freeze them is both symbolic and practical, intertwining the children's personal lives with the monarchy's ongoing narrative. And yet, even in this delicate and charged situation, there are glimmers of hope and resilience. Harry and Meghan's careful navigation, the support of trusted advisors, and the children's own adaptability suggest that while the suspension of titles is significant, it does not define their entirety. Identity, after all, is complex, shaped by love, experience, and guidance as much as by institutional recognition. For Lilibet and Archie, the next steps will be formative, teaching lessons in resilience, awareness, and the navigation of public life from an unusually young age. But as the family adjusts to this new reality, the world waits with bated breath. The palace, the public, and the media are all watching for the next move. How will Harry and Meghan respond to this unprecedented intervention? How will the children's identities develop under the shadow of frozen titles? And perhaps most importantly, what unseen tensions are beginning to stir behind the palace walls, where strategy, emotion, and history collide in ways that could redefine the future of the monarchy? When the news of King Charles freezing the Sussex children's royal rights broke, it sent shockwaves through Buckingham Palace. Behind the palace walls, the corridors of power, steeped in centuries of ritual and hierarchy, were buzzing with discussions, briefings, and strategic planning. This was not merely a family matter. It was a delicate exercise in messaging, perception management, and institutional authority. Every word spoken, every memo circulated, and every press release drafted carried immense weight. Palace officials immediately recognized the need to balance two competing priorities, clarity and compassion. On one hand, they needed to affirm that the monarch's decision was deliberate, measured, and grounded in the principles of tradition and hierarchy. On the other hand, they had to acknowledge the human element. Lilibet and Archie are children, innocent by nature, and their situation would inevitably draw public empathy and emotional scrutiny. The challenge was extraordinary. Communicate authority without appearing harsh, maintain institutional credibility without undermining familial bonds. Sources within the palace describe a flurry of activity. Communications teams drafted statements emphasizing continuity and precedent, while legal advisors reviewed the formal language of the title suspension to ensure accuracy and unassailable legitimacy. Meanwhile, palace courtiers and senior officials coordinated with advisors to prepare for potential fallout. Media speculation, social media backlash, and questions from international observers who follow the monarchy with meticulous attention. Public messaging, the palace realized, was a high-stakes balancing act. Every word would be scrutinized. Every omission could be interpreted as weakness, favoritism, or secrecy. The challenge was amplified by the modern media environment. 24/7 news cycles, instantaneous social media reactions, and global audiences that interpret the monarchy not just as a family, but as a symbol of national identity. In this environment, the freezing of royal rights could not